Hi everyone, welcome back to Eco and Crafts. Today I'll be sharing with you guys how I made my hexagonal poof. I actually made it a few years ago in COVID era, but a few people have been around to our flat and have really liked it and complimented it, so I thought I would share it with you guys today in case anyone else was interested in making something similar. It was the first time I'd ever made anything like this, and once I got the measurements and pattern pieces sorted, it was actually a really straightforward thing to create. So I'll hopefully have some diagrams down the side here to explain what I'm talking about as I go along. But to start with, we'll just talk about the things I used for it. So fabric-wise, I found just in a local shop this really nice sort of velour, satiny feeling fabric that's reinforced in the back, so it's proper upholstery fabric. I would recommend getting something that is pretty tough if you want to make something like this. And I think you need probably at least 2 meters worth of your fabric to make the same size poof that I have, which is about 55 centimeters across and about 40 centimeters tall. In addition, of course, matching thread. I would get yourself some proper upholstery strength needles for your sewing machine. And then to make the piping that I have around the top and bottom, I think there's lots of different ways to make piping. Again, I'd not made it previously, but the kind of way that I made it was essentially having enough cord to go around the top and the bottom, and then essentially sewing around it to create that sort of structure and the piping look. But I'll go through that properly in a sec. But in addition to that, I think I had a 45 centimeter zip, again, that I got in a matching color, and that's it. So in terms of pattern pieces, to create the sort of hexagonal appearance at the top, I used 6 different triangles, well, 6 triangular pattern pieces. They're all exactly the same, of 27 centimeters in each dimension. And once you've cut each of those out, you sew each one, my hands are going weird in the camera, to the next one to create the hexagonal shape. The 27 centimeters and all the measurements I'll be giving you do not include any seam allowance. So you can add, you'll need to add whatever seam allowance you want to the periphery of the pieces that you make. Additionally, obviously, if you want to make exactly the same size poof that I've made, then you just copy the measurements. If you want to make it bigger or smaller, then you can just adjust the pattern piece measurements accordingly. So once you've made the top pieces, then you can get on to making the pieces for the bottom. If you want that same triangular hexagonal look, then you can just cut 6 more triangles out and sew 3 together and then 3 together and keep them separate in the middle, and then the zip will go down the middle. I just, when I was making my pieces, basically just cut this out as one piece. So the bottom pieces of the poof don't look exactly the same as this, but I figured it was on the floor, so I'm gonna make life easy for myself. When you've got your bottom pieces all sorted, then you can insert the zip in the middle, and then because my zip wasn't quite long enough, I cut some extra little rectangles of fabric, which you'll have to kind of judge whether you just want a longer zip or whether you want to just do what I did, which is basically just add another piece of fabric to the end on each side for the zip. So that's your top and bottom pieces done. I then created the piping, and as I said, I just used enough length, so the minimum length would have been 162 centimeters, so a bit longer than that for the top and bottom. And then the same for the piping pieces, it was 2.5 to 3 centimeters widthwise, and then again a minimum of 162 lengthwise, but make it a bit longer than that. You'll need to kind of overlap it at the ends to make it nice and neat and tidy. So I basically just popped it in the middle, folded it around, and then sewed down there for the top and bottom, so 2 strips, and that was the piping done. For the side pieces, you could either just cut one big rectangle piece, which the pattern piece itself, so again without seam allowance, would be 40 centimeters tall and 162 centimeters long. And then you could just wrap that round, just keep sewing, attaching it to the top and bottom pieces, and it'd be like a cylindrical side hexagonal top and bottom. I created I tried to make it a little bit more hexagonal, although to be honest I think maybe I should have just done one large piece. So I made 6 rectangular pieces. Again, the pattern piece is 40 centimeters tall, and then the same width as your triangle, so in my case 27 centimeters wide, with the extra seam allowance. Sewed them all together to make one long strip, which in total equaled 162 centimeters long and 40 centimeters tall. And then matched up the join of the triangle to the side seam of the side panels and just kept sewing all the way around. And that was sandwiching your piping between your top piece and your side piece and just kept sewing all the way around. And then basically the same again for the bottom. So just lining the side seam up of your side panel to one of the corners of your hexagonal of your bottom base, sandwiching that piping in between and continuing to sew around. And that's pretty much your poof done. I haven't included any sort of volumes of beanbag fill or anything like that because I haven't used any. I literally filled this whole thing with, I think it's like a couple of old duvets, some old cushions. For a while I had some extra spare blankets in here, so it was a bit of extra blanket storage. And basically just stuffed it with any extra soft things I had lying around. So a bit of recycling and also a bit of extra storage when I still had those blankets in here. There's different ways you can customize this. As I said, it's quite easy to scale up or down size-wise to make it bigger or smaller. I do think this is a pretty good size though. I think you could definitely go bigger. I think it would be really quite small if you made it a lot smaller. But obviously, up to you. I think if you made it smaller width-wise, you'd have to make it a lot smaller height-wise, or you'll just end up with a sort of something that looks a bit more like a draft excluder. But anyway, so you can change the size. You could also be a bit different in terms of having different fabric on the top or side. I obviously just did some kind of simple classic-looking piping. But if you've got any sort of extra decorative bits, again, you can just get various fabric shops. You know, those strips of fabric that have like tiny tassels on, tiny pom-poms on, which I really wanted. I thought if I got them in like a gold or something, it would look really cool. My husband vetoed the pom-poms, so we went for the plain piping. But again, if you had some extra like wide ribbon pieces, you could fold those over and that could be the decorative or like contrast element to this. And as I said, at the bottom, you can either make it triangular and hexagonal as well, or you can just put one large rectangular piece and just wrap it all the way around and sew that if you want an easier job. And to be honest, I might, if I made another one, I might have done that in the future, because although I think the side seams do look quite neat, I'm not sure it really adds very hexagonal shape to the side of the poof. Hopefully that is everything. If anything I've said is not making sense, or you guys have any additional questions, please do put them down in the comment box below. And otherwise, of course, if you enjoyed this video or found it useful, I have loads of other crafting or like more eco-conscious crafting videos for you guys to check out. And of course, please consider liking and subscribing. It really helps out my channel. Anyway, I hope you guys have a lovely afternoon, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.